and take his cue.
John Virgo.
This was John Virgo's stage, the big break in his career. One that started back in the 60s in the snooker halls of Salford, where at 15 he left school to compete as an amateur. But this sport was on the rise, and so was Virgo. At age 30, he turned professional, and in 1979 he won the UK Championship, his one major trophy, but later he revealed why he could never watch it back.
The night I had my great moment, there was a national strike of TV technicians and nobody saw it.
Your biggest moment in your life?
Yeah, nobody saw it.
Well, we've managed to find that tape. No, we ain't. Just kidding.
Between frames, Virgo also brought entertainment. He did impressions of fellow players.
Thank you very much.
The TV world would start to notice. In the late 80s, his form was in decline. He'd run up debts through gambling. With his career on...
Being a professional back in the 70s was that if you were a professional, you were obligated to entertain and do trick shots. And you learnt your trade not just as a player, but as an entertainer.
10 reds in front of the middle pocket. What I'm going to try and do is to pot the black. And the way it works, quite simply, hit that red onto that one in turn with that one, 10 reds open up, and the black is through the middle of the 10 reds into the middle pocket. Should work something like this. Yeah. I think in those early days, particularly when you turn professional, there was probably... I think the UK might... I don't think the UK was there the first year I turned pro. Oh, it might have been, so there was 2 tournaments, really. The others were invitations, you know, and it depends where... Really, at that time, it depended whether you're fitted or not. So your bread and butter, if you like, was done playing the holiday camps. I mean, the first year I turned pro, I got a Butlins holiday circuit in Skegness and Clacton-on-Sea. You know, I used to do about 1,000 miles a week for 150 quid, you know. And I used to do the...
Petrol prices, you made a net profit of about
it was unbelievable, you know, and I used to have a loud hailer to try and describe the shot. Well, I didn't do it, the red coat did it, you know, he'd go, Johnny's now going to pot the pink in the corner pocket. But because a loud hailer only goes to the people you're aiming at, he has to explain it 4 times, you know. But that's what you had to do those days, and I think that's the difference. When you played, you were trying to sell the game. You were trying to convince people that the game of snooker was worth watching. And of course, once it got popular and the money came into it, it was like, you didn't have to prove that anymore. I mean, it was there anyway. But I think, I'm not knocking the players today because I think they're absolutely superb. I really do. I mean, the talent, their ability and everything else, I just don't feel as though they want to sell the game, or they don't feel the need to sell the game, you know. I mean, even in your own way, you sold the game. All right, might be that, you know, you got people like Alex Higgins to play, which is the contrast, and Jimmy White. But then, if you were playing, I always remember you once, it was so funny. You played Eugene Hughes in a tournament on the ITV.
Yeah, I remember.
And they came up to you and said, if it's not over after this next frame, we're going to pull you off, remember?
But yeah, yes.
Yeah. I'm not going to come out with the old joke, it's better than an orange. Anyway. And you ran round the table, do you remember?
Yes, to try and
so they
the
wouldn't pull you off. You ran round the table like Alex Higgins. Thought it was really funny, you know. But that's what people were trying to do. As I say, in the early days, sell the game, whereas now I don't see it, you know. I see people who... don't get me wrong, I mean, as I say, I'm not knocking their ability.
No, of course not.
But all of a sudden, there's 1 or 2 of them that when they get to a position where the frame's over, just go, oh, you know, let's set them up again. And I don't see any... don't see a lot of class in that, and I don't see a lot of it being done for the spectators who, at the end of the day, whether they're spectating in the arena or at home on TV, they need to be entertained, don't they? They need someone to excite them. And I just don't see a lot of that happening now.
You've entertained millions of people, and perhaps your biggest break in many ways was by what we all knew was a great trick shot routine, doing the impressions that we'd seen for years on the circuit, and had everybody in stitches doing an impression of Alex Higgins.
Okay. Blue, pink and black. Same shot. Yes! It's nearly up for me. Nearly up for me.
One year at the World Championship, a session finished early, and you did your routine in front of millions of viewers for the first time. That must have been great fun.
Well, it was unbelievable, really. I mean, it didn't happen to you as many times, well, not by a long chalk as it happened to me, but when you get knocked out in that first round at Sheffield, or the second round, you think, what am I going to do with 17 days now? Because I wasn't commentating for the BBC at the time. And Mike Watterson, who run the tournament, said, I believe you do some impersonation. Well, at the time, the first impersonation I ever did was John Hargreaves. Remember the Stoke player?
With comedian Jim Davidson, he starred in Big Break, doing trick shots with contestants.
Hit through the centre of the neck and flick the basket up.
And setting up the stars. Joe gave Virgo a route in to further fame.
And John Virgo comes
to book deals, panto, and his own line of waistcoats. But he was always most at home on snooker's greatest stage. For decades at the Crucible, he was the voice of his sport. Virgo's commentary brought jeopardy.
Where's the cue ball going? Where's the cue ball going? Oh!
He was on the mic for the BBC just 17 days ago at the final of the Masters.
And it's Kyron Wilson now. His second Triple Crown victory.
For 40 years, his presence made this sport entertainment. John Virgo was the bridge between the pockets and the people. Snooker without him will never sound quite the same.
And now he can relax.
On the professional game.
Where's the cue ball going? Where's the cue ball going?
Players held a 1-minute silence ahead of the final session of the World Grand Prix in Hong Kong, and some of snooker's greatest players have also paid tribute. Six-time world champion Steve Davis said he was a brilliant commentator. Fans couldn't help but be swept up in his enthusiasm in the moment, while 7-time world champion Ronnie O'Sullivan said that he was such a great mate who I loved spending time with, absolutely gutted.
Had the wit and the humour that could keep us all on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct. I mean, warmth and a humour, but totally professional as well, Charlie. Absolutely loved the sport for what it was. You'd never hear him say a bad word about snooker. Everything he had in his life, he got through snooker, and he totally loved the sport. Even if he'd be in the commentary box for hours and he'd finish a session, he'd take off his headphones and he'd turn around and say, what a great game that was. Even though he was on it and actually trying to enhance the viewing for people at home, he still loved the sport itself.
It doesn't always work, does it, that being a great player, and he was a great player in his own right, makes you a good commentator? It doesn't always work that way, does it?
No, absolutely not. And I think quite a few of the young lads who play on the tour one time, there was mutterings about, some of the commentators being a bit older, this and that. And we had a couple of them in the commentary box, and they soon realised that how good John was, and it's not that easy, to be honest with you. So they got a few eye-openers working with John, because he was a total professional in everything he did. Always on time, always there checking, making sure that, speak to the director, make sure the sound was good, everything ready and prepared. So, and from ball one, he'd be off and away.
Yeah, hi, John. It's Mike here. I love the phrase that he was almost like the bridge between the pockets and the people, making snooker box office on Saturday nights, didn't he, with Big Break? What was that? Was his sense of humour? I mean, he could make even the most boring frames seem so dramatic with the stories he'd weave through commentary.
Enthusiasm, as I've said to you before, it's enthusiasm. We love the sport for what it is. I mean, we could have double sessions at the Crucible and you'd be in at 1 o'clock. You might only get an hour in between two of them. And if you've got a late night finish, you know, coming out 11, half 11, and he still managed to keep that enthusiasm. You know, we'd see him late, he might have a drink late in the bar, shake it off, he'd have breakfast in the morning and he'd be ready to go again. But he just totally loved the sport, and he everything he gave of his best. You know, we did shows around the country and we did 31 of them from sort of Inverness to Plymouth, and every night never missed a beat. Totally professional, new audience, let's give them the best we've got.
And
that's a brave thing to do. It's innovative to come up with the idea anyway, but brave to go out and do it. Could have fell flat in his face with it, but he was absolutely brilliant at it and brought the house down. So, as I say, he was never more comfortable at any time than with a microphone in his hand. He was a showman, and you put a microphone in him and he came out and he always gave of his best. His competitor, obviously very good. I mean, at a young age, he was British boys champion when he was 16, and he came through the amateur ranks, and then he came through, he was playing with your Ray Reardons, John Spencers, Alex Higgins, Dennis Taylors, all those greats. And he managed to win the UK in 79. So if you win a major, you're a proper player. And he certainly gave me an education the first time we played. I thought I was pretty good till I ran into him, and he, you know, showed me where I needed to improve. And, you know, it was a few years before I got the better of him. But he was a proper player in his own right. And it was only later on when his neck started to give him a bit of trouble that he had to pack in playing, and it was a seamless transition into the commentary box.
What's going on here? You'll have to take us through this.
Wow.
Am I inside a cat? Is that the one you've got?
Yeah, yes. I've got, You're a gnome, but you're a gnome.
Oh, I'm a gnome for that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was like that's a special, yeah.
There's more than one then. Come on, where's this come about?
I know. Well, it was just on Big Break, and they said, "Do you mind doing one of those?" I went, "No, go on, I'll do it for a laugh." And then the other one, I was inside a Cheshire cat, so there was a parrot inside a cat. I got all that one as well. So, but it was just great fun. That programme wouldn't have worked if it hadn't been for the chemistry between the two of them. And you know, that if someone had said to me, "You put a snooker table on you know, peak viewing on a Saturday night, and there'll be a quiz show, and it's going to work and have millions of viewers," I'd never have believed it. But because those two were so good together, you know, they carried the show.
Well, John, if you were to give us a moment of one of your memories of time with John over the years, what would that moment be? What's, you know, because everyone has one of those thoughts, don't they? When someone passes away and you have a thought, you've put yourself in a time and place, where would you be with him? Well, in the commentary box, because that's where he was at his absolute supreme best. And you always knew that when you were in there with him, you were in a very safe pair of hands, that what you were watching was going to be reported correctly, and he was going to do it with great humour, and he was going to love the sport. And I absolutely loved working with him, because I'd like to think I'm as professional as he is, and to work with somebody like that, it's just easy. It makes your job easy, it makes your life easy. But he absolutely loved the sport, and I'm sure that came through in at home for people listening.
So the job's done.
John Virgo, who's died at the age of 79.